It's Levack and Goz on 104.5 The Team.
It's been a rough beginning of the season for the New York Giants. Everybody's looking for answers. John Schmeelk has the inside track for us as he works with the Giants and WFAN. John, first thing, we're here in the Capital Region, and the phone lines are slammed with people trying to decide who's to blame for the 0-2 start. Who do you blame from where you sit?
Well, first of all, man, I'm happy you didn't say I had all the answers because I don't. But honestly, I think in a game like this, and frankly, in the first two games the way they've gone, I think there's a lot of blame to go along. I think, the obvious place to start is when you see a quarterback on the ground as much as he has been. I think you have to look at the protection and some of the problems on the offensive line. I think that's fair. They haven't run the ball either. But look, there are other plays in this game that could have turned the tide. If Brandon Marshall catches that ball on the sideline, I think this game could have went very differently. If Evan Ingram, towards the end of the game, I know it was a little out of reach at that point, but he had a ball in his hands that could have went for a touchdown. It got knocked out by Darius Slay. Then you have a punt return for a touchdown. The special teams failed them. The Giants' rush defense right now is in the bottom fifth of the league. I think they're ranked 26th or 28th right now in terms of yards allowed per game. They were a top 5 rush defense last year. They're giving up 50% of their third downs on defense. Last year they were at 35%, third best in the league. So there are a lot of areas right now where the Giants are struggling in all three phases. But, guys, bottom line here, they scored 1 touchdown in 2 games, and if you want to simplify it, that's how you simplify it.
1 touchdown in 2 games, you laid it out there, so the offense having some struggles. Is there one spot in particular? Is it a simple change on the offensive line or the running backs? How can this offense get flat out better?
You know what? I don't really think it is that simple right now. I think if you could obviously pick up a Pro Bowl and All-Pro left tackle somewhere, I think it'd be great to do that. But unfortunately, that's not realistic. And I've done a couple of these interviews today already for different parts in New York, and everyone asks me the same question: how do you fix this offensive line? Is there someone you can find that can fix things? And guys, if you watch the NFL the first 2 weeks, it's been sloppy football. Teams are not scoring a lot of points, and I think a big problem around the league, quite frankly, are offensive lines. There are not a lot of great offensive linemen out there. The Seahawks almost lost to the 49ers, for goodness sakes, because they couldn't block for Russell Wilson. And there just aren't a lot of good offensive linemen to be had, which I think is also the explanation for why there weren't major changes in that unit over the course of the offseason. I mean, there were some guys out there that were, frankly, below average football players on the offensive line getting, $30 to $50 million contracts in the offseason. So I think it's just a real position of need for a lot of teams around football right now, and the Giants are included in that group.
John Schmeelk with us right now on 104.5 The Team. So, John, this offensive line with this team with less offensive weapons went 11-5 last year. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I think, frankly, their performance the first 2 games this year probably on average is worse than how they performed last year. I think that's number one. Number 2, I think the running game, again, has probably been on average worse the first 2 weeks this year as opposed to what we saw for the majority of last year. And Odell Beckham missed the first game. I think that's a big factor. He only played in 60% of the snaps of the second game. That's a big factor, too. And I think you put all that together. Eli Manning hasn't been great the first 2 weeks either, and I think a lot of it has to do with the protection, to be honest with you. And frankly, I think the fact that the defense hasn't gotten teams off the field as quickly, the offense has had fewer opportunities to make plays as opposed to last year. So I think all those things are in the equation together.
Eric Flowers up front, first-round draft pick, still struggling in this part of his career. Is there any point, even in this season, where they just give up on Flowers and try somebody else out at left tackle?
Their only other option at left tackle, well, there are 2 in fairness. If they want to do a straight move, their only other real option at left tackle is Chad Wheeler, who is an undrafted free agent out of USC. I don't think you want to put an undrafted free agent in his rookie season on Eli Manning's blind side. That, to me, is unrealistic. The other option you have is to move Justin Pugh, who, as you guys well know, played left tackle at Syracuse when he was in college. He hasn't played left tackle in the pros. But that's a place where he could get put, but then you'd have to move other pieces. And here's the added piece of the formula here, guys. With Bobby Hart re-injuring his ankle this weekend, he only played 2 plays. Justin Pugh to move out to right tackle, and Brett Jones moved to left guard where he played previously. So they're already into their 6th offensive lineman. If they decide to make a move at left tackle, you're down to your 7th offensive lineman on their depth chart. That is simply not a success for victory.
John Schmeelk with us right now, 104.5 The Team. So John, as this is all going on, the team is playing pretty bad football. The 2007 team is being honored, and there's Tom Coughlin and everything else. Was the vibe even worse because of the celebration of the 2007 team?
Well, it was so close at halftime, so I think the fans still had some hope. And I think you got the 2007 guys come out, and they had the little celebration. It was great. It was executed brilliantly. It was great to see all those guys together again because it was such a special year. But, yeah, I mean, I think it was a little, deflating for the fans after having the emotional halftime to, see the team fail to respond in the second half. But I think one lesson some people are trying to take from that 2017 is that they did start 0-2, and they managed to come back and win the Super Bowl. Now there were different circumstances, obviously. One of the reasons they started 0-2 in 2007 was Steve Spagnuolo was their defensive coordinator. They weren't quite used to his system yet. They gave up, I think, 78 combined points the first 2 games to the Cowboys and Packers. That sort of circumstance isn't in the mix this year. So I'm not sure I buy that comparison, but I heard some people mention that over the course of the last day or so.
We now look towards week 3. The Eagles playing the Giants, an NFC East battle. What can happen in this matchup that the Giants can actually take down the Eagles and get their first win of the season?
They have to protect. I mean, the Eagles have a better pass rush, in my opinion, at least, as a team than both the Lions and the Cowboys. Fletcher Cox is excellent at defensive tackle. If Brett Jones is going to be there at left guard, I would worry about that matchup. Brandon Graham at pass rushing across from Eric Flowers. I think that's a matchup to keep an eye on. And then they have their rookie Derek Barnett, another guy who can rush the passer a little bit. And the thing about it is that the Eagles secondary is banged up. So if the Giants can protect, and that's a big if because they haven't been able to do it so far this year, they should be able to do some damage with their weapons, especially if Odell Beckham Jr. is healthier next week than he was this week. They should be able to do some damage against that secondary, but can they give Eli the time that he needs? I don't know the answer to that question.
John, just kind of a side note is a lot of people are making a big deal, including myself, that Ben McAdoo kind of threw Eli under the bus. You see the inner workings between those guys. You see them up close. They won't let that get in the way of work, right? That won't be in the way of game plans or anything. They won't need to sit down and talk about that, will they? No, and I think you already saw last night. Eli had his little press conference after McAdoo did. He was asked what Ben McAdoo said, and he wasn't bothered by it. You can argue with whether or not you call the quarterback by name and things like that, and that's fine. But look, the bottom line is true. I mean, you can't have a delay of game on a 4th and 2 at the 2-yard line, and in the end, that is the responsibility of the center and the quarterback. So factually, it's accurate. So I don't have a huge problem, with that. I think Eli knows that it's his job to get that snap off. It absolutely is. But no, that is not going to be an issue between the head coach and the quarterback, who both want nothing more than to score some points and win some football games. John, I hope the next time we're talking, it's after a 2-game win streak, not 2-game losing streak. Yes, so do I, because it has not been very pleasant in the building today. Hopefully, next Monday will be better. All right, man. Best of luck to you, and thanks for joining us. No problem, boys. Anytime.